Thank you for joining us for this special edition of KPBS News. I'm Maya Trabulsi. San Diego saw a substantial drop in daily COVID-19 cases this week, raising optimism that the local situation is improving. Over a two-day period, the case rate dipped below 100 per 100,000 people. And if that trend continues, the county could be removed from the state watch list. Overall, San Diego County has seen more than 33,000 cases and more than 600 deaths. To our east, Imperial County is approaching 10,000 cases since March. And while San Diego saw some progress in its numbers, there's a call to do more about those who break the rules. As KPBS's John Carroll reports, one coastal neighborhood is dealing with an event that's become quite the problem.
But right now, people who come here with no mask, with no distancing, are being irresponsible, and they could get sick, deathly sick, and die.
As bystanders heckled her, City Council member Jen Campbell did not mince words. Ocean Beach is in her district, so she's been getting an earful from OB residents and businesses about the Wednesday night drum circles. The weekly drum circles have been a fixture of OB for the last couple of years, but now, in the midst of a pandemic, they've turned into possible super spreader events with very little mask wearing and practically no physical distancing. This morning, the city put up an orange plastic fence around the Veterans Park area where the circles take place. But by this afternoon, it had been torn down. Campbell was furious.
So I'm telling everybody who loves to congregate here, behave, or you're going to be in big trouble.
Campbell says if people continue to violate the county's health orders, they should be arrested and charged. But before it comes to that, city officials say they'll try a softer approach.
But we're going to stand here for several hours tomorrow and educate people that this is not acceptable.
It's not just the blatant violations of health regulations that have locals here upset. OB's town council president says community members are left with a gross aftermath every week.
Picking up mountains of trash that happens here on Wednesdays and other days.
Winky says a last resort option would be to close the park, but that would deprive the entire community of a beautiful resource, all because some folks refuse to follow the rules. John Carroll, KPBS News.
If case numbers continue to trend downward, it could bring a major step toward reopening schools. San Diego County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher explained what it will take to make that happen.
I think it is undeniable that we had a significant increase in cases. Actions were taken. The number of cases have come down. And so it's clear that the actions that were taken certainly contributed to our lowering case count, and we will continue to work with the state to get additional guidance moving forward. But the good news is we're headed in the right direction. We are trending down. We want to continue to trend down, and we want to make sure that we maintain our vigilance and our posture so that we can stay low and stay off the state monitoring website. The one possible impact that will come is if we come off the state monitoring list, meaning we have 3 consecutive days with our case counts below 100 per 100,000 per the state's calculation. If we come off that list, then we start a new clock of 14 days. And if we have 14 consecutive days, after the 3, starts a new one, we have 14 consecutive days, then all K through 12 schools at their own discretion, consistent with the state guidance, posting a safe reopening plan, but all K through 12 schools would be able to open moving forward.
San Diego Unified, our largest school district, says it's moving forward with the assumption it will be months, not weeks, until students return to campus. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong shows us what returning to the classroom could look like.
San Diego Unified School District released a 60-page report detailing safety measures for when it reopens campuses. The report was written in collaboration with 10 health experts from UC San Diego. The guidelines, however, are subject to change depending on the status of the pandemic in the coming weeks or months.
Whatever our experts say today, it may change in 3 weeks.
Howard Terrace was one of those researchers and is also the head pediatrician at San Diego Unified. He said once San Diego County is off the state's monitoring list for high infection rates, the district will make its own assessment of whether it's safe to have students and teachers back in the classroom.
And that includes not only how prevalent the disease is out there, but also where is our public health system in getting testing and getting contact tracing? Where are they in that process everywhere? Because that will also apply to our schools.
The plan to reopen schools includes requirements for social distancing, face coverings, and classroom ventilation. Students will be required to be 6 feet apart at all times unless there's a barrier between desks. And students will wear masks at all times in class. Windows will remain open during bus rides, and if it's feasible, classes could be held outside.
We really have to check and make sure that the ventilation is very good, and that if we are using an HVAC, an air conditioning or heating system, that our filters are really very good. And we're going to be looking at those sorts of things. As much as can be done outside will be done outside, because there's the best ventilation possible.
Also, the report says classroom surfaces and play equipment will be sanitized at least once a day. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
Thousands of people continue to cross the border in San Ysidro every day despite some COVID-19 travel restrictions, but very few of them are screened for the virus. Well, this week, the county set up a new testing site at the border crossing. It's located at the pedestrian East Gate with a capacity of about 150 to 200 tests per day. An appointment is not required. An official with San Diego County Health and Human Services explains the purpose of the new testing site and who can use it.
So this particular site is targeted for folks that are crossing the border, essential workers, U.S. citizens that live on the other side of the border, but really any member of the public can come here to be tested.
The testing site is open in the morning from 6:30 to 10:30, but the county says those hours might expand. KPBS spoke with a woman who says the entire testing process took about 5 minutes. Results are expected in 3 to 4 days. From health to finances, COVID-19 has had a greater impact on Black and Latino neighborhoods. Even access to testing is a challenge. KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser has more on the disparities made worse by the pandemic.
One report shows that among large metro areas nationwide, San Diego has one of the largest gaps in COVID-19 testing access for white and non-white neighborhoods. It found, for example, that testing sites in majority Black areas were estimated to be 28% busier than majority white areas. Another report found the zip codes with both the highest number of COVID cases and the highest unemployment rates are in areas where more Black and Hispanic people live. The 91911 zip code in Chula Vista had the most unemployment and COVID infections, followed by 91932 in Imperial Beach, and then by 91950 in National City.
And I think that's kind of the double whammy of this particular crisis that we're facing right now.
Ray Major is Sandag's chief economist and author of the report.
There's a community that is disproportionately hit, and that is the minority community here in San Diego.
It's a call to action for all of us to do better.
Nancy Maldonado, the CEO of the Chicano Federation, says she is not surprised by the numbers, but called them heartbreaking.
It's there, it's in the data, it's in the numbers, and I think collectively we all need to do better.
The county recently rolled out a program using community health workers known as promotoras to give Latino people a trusted source of information. Community groups are also getting county funding to set up a community resource center. Maldonado says these are all steps in the right direction, but she wishes they had been done earlier.
We need all hands on deck to get these infection rates down. We need all hands on deck to make sure that we bring the death rate down. And we need all hands on deck to make sure that all communities within San Diego County have the resources and the referrals and the help that they need right now.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
South Bay communities are still at the top of the list when it comes to COVID-19 cases. Otay Mesa is approaching 2,000 cases. You can see the latest case numbers broken down by zip code at kpbs.org. Census counters began knocking on local doors this week, and KPBS reporter Max Rovland-Nadler tells us how community organizations have tried to make their job easier.
Yeah, it really impacts if a hospital gets built or a free lunch gets paid.
This is Joanne Field's third go-round with the census after helping the county's efforts in 2000 and 2010. She's an organizer on Asian and Pacific Islander issues and is working with a variety of community groups in San Diego to boost census responses for this year's count. After each decade, she's seen how the census directly translates to vital infrastructure for San Diego's neighborhoods.
In National City, we have a new urgent care at Paradise Valley Hospital. Why? It's because they're serving more people in National City and southeastern San Diego.
She sees this year's count as vital to focusing the government's recovery efforts from the coronavirus pandemic. For example, she says, federal CARES Act funding was tied directly to the previous census.
So again, that's where the census comes into play.
But this has been like no other census in American history. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, efforts by local organizations to go door to door to get people to respond to the census had to be put on hold this spring. Mail delivery has been slowed. And a lot of residents, especially those in poor neighborhoods, have had a lot of other things on their minds. But there have been some things working for the census this year. Like seemingly everything else, the census has gone online, and it's shorter.
We have technology on our side this time around. This is the first time we can complete the census online, and there's only 9 questions.
That means efforts like Count Me 2020, San Diego and Imperial County's official census coalition can track in real time where people are answering the census and which areas need more outreach. For neighborhoods like City Heights, which relies heavily on government support for better education, housing, and healthcare, organizations can pinpoint where to focus their efforts.
We have had to switch our strategy. And so currently right now we're dropping off literature, hoping to, at least in some way, right, reach out to our community to make sure that they're counted.
Brenda Diaz is the Civic Engagement Coordinator at Mid-City Community Advocacy Network. Her organization has been spearheading census efforts in City Heights, where non-English speakers, refugees, and immigrants have been hard hit by both the adverse health impacts and the economic fallout from the pandemic. She explains that makes the census less of a priority, while at the same time, that much more important.
We understood and still understand that the census is very important, but again, it's not a priority in our community. And so I think by first addressing the issues that they're concerned about, and kind of giving them some ease and some sort of relief, then they're able to take in, our messaging, which is, well, this is why you should participate in the census.
In addition to reaching people where they are, census organizers have had to get a bit creative. In the past few weeks, they've launched car caravans around neighborhoods in San Diego and Imperial counties, encouraging people to participate in the census. These efforts have been paying off. Right now, San Diego County has surpassed its final 2010 self-response rate, with 69.2% of households in the county responding. But that still means that government workers will have to visit over 382,000 homes. Because of a decision by the Census Bureau last week, they'll have one less month to do that. The count will end September 30th. And neighborhoods like City Heights are still lagging behind. The final push to get an accurate count is where City Heights leaders like Mikhail Hussein are stepping up. He is the head of the United Taxi Workers of San Diego, whose members are from the immigrant communities that are the hardest to count. Over 100 of their drivers are being paid this week to put a large magnet on their taxis promoting the census in several languages.
Our community, as you can see, they are visual community. They want to see things in order to do something.
Hussein believes that messengers from their own communities and not the government will help alleviate any concerns they might have about the information they're sharing.
To see something they can relate. In other words, something they know what that mean. And also there is a cool thing actually the Census 2020 they did is different language explaining about what the Tirakopka, the census means is Tirakopka. So they're kind of like what's the benefit and why it's a benefit, why you have to do it, what's the requirement, people what they can ask, what they cannot ask.
With the clock ticking, and with even less time than organizers expected, San Diego has under 2 months left to get its census count right. And the next 10 years are riding on it. Maxwell Adler, KPBS News.
The Navy halted movement this spring because of the pandemic, leaving many families uncertain of their future. Now it's trying to restart travel, but as KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh reports, not everybody is being allowed to move just yet.
This is our home for the moment.
Adaptability is part of Navy life. For Kylie McFerrin and her family, that's meant living in an RV at a campground in the Laguna Mountains. It's about an hour away from the ocean, where her husband continues to work at Naval Base Coronado in San Diego County.
It has been difficult. There have been a lot of times where you have to tell yourself, this is only temporary. This is not forever. Tomorrow's a new day.
The McFerrins sold their home when her husband received orders transferring him to Maryland. They were forced to move out in July, but by then, the Navy had put his move on hold. With 2 young kids and no place to live, their best option was to buy an RV and search for campgrounds.
Some places are just booked because most people make these plans months and years in advance. And we are trying to do it last minute.
Her family is one of thousands caught up in the military's stop movement order, which went into effect in March. In July, the Pentagon began loosening restrictions. About 40% of the 230 U.S. military installations worldwide have reopened, because they met requirements like having fewer COVID-19 cases for at least 14 days. Assistant Commander of Navy Personnel Captain Derek Trank says bases also needed to be operating closer to normal.
There can't be a local travel restriction. They have to have essential services like childcare.
But San Diego naval bases are still on the red list, though the Navy is making exceptions.
But we have a waiver process. We were able to get sailors moved because they had a hardship or because they were essential to the mission of the new command.
Waivers have helped dramatically clear the Navy's backlog. The Navy originally expected it would take until sometime next year to move the nearly 24,000 waiting families. Now it expects to have the rest of those families at their new bases by November. The number of cases of coronavirus in the military has plateaued in the last week or so, though coronavirus cases had been surging through July, even as the Navy was pushing to get more sailors moving. Trank says the Navy is convinced it's reopening safely.
Because we are taking those steps to keep our people safe, I believe it is allowing us to make these moves, whereas before, everybody stopped moving really was the right answer because we knew so little.
Still, determining why one base is open to travel and another base is closed can be confusing for military families. Early in the pandemic, the Pentagon stopped listing COVID cases by base. In San Diego County, along with the Navy, the Marines' West Coast boot camp is still red flagged. But the Marines are free to transfer in and out of Camp Pendleton. Navy spouse Kelly Kopech is finally on her way to the East Coast from San Diego. She spoke from the road.
The unanswered questions. Nobody seemed to really know what information to give us or what advice to give us or that type of thing. And it was a lot of hurry up and wait.
Just like the McFerrins, the Kopechs also brought an RV when they needed a place to live after they sold their house in San Diego. Now they are finally traveling cross-country to Virginia with their 7-month-old with the help of a Navy waiver.
Something that would be incredibly helpful and beneficial to a future pandemic or other extreme situation would be for the Navy to allow for case management in this.
That would give families a point of contact, like when they have sailors deployed. The Kopechs will be required to self-isolate for 14 days at their new base. The RV will make that easier, while other families wait for their turn to hit the road. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Those who work in San Diego's hospitality and tourism industry are in need of help. COVID-19 has shut down major events for months with no end in sight. Matt Hoffman shows us how they're rallying for support.
The San Diego Empty Event Rally was held here outside the county administration building, trying to raise awareness for the millions of event staff that have been laid off nationwide due to the pandemic.
Each of the 48 tables represents 250,000 event industry workers out of work due to COVID-19.
The rally was put on by a group called the San Diego Community Event Coalition. The group is made up of businesses and nonprofits that put on large events in San Diego like Pride.
For the first time in over 45 years, we have not been able to celebrate Pride. As of now, we have taken an estimated $1.3 million net loss in revenue.
The coalition is working with county officials to establish cleaning and distancing protocols to once again start holding live events. But currently, group gatherings are prohibited by the county health order.
We stand in solidarity with our event industry community and ask that our elected officials acknowledge the economic impact the event industry has for all of San Diego.
Event organizers are asking people that enjoy food festivals and other community events to help them make their voices heard.
That beer fest, that you had that best beer in your entire life, or that musician that you just partied all onto the night and you all sat up all night talking about that amazing event. We need our people, which is our event guests and attendees, to start speaking on our behalf.
If not, organizers say the event industry and people in it will continue to suffer.
Event planners, lighting companies, lighting hands, stage companies, stage hands, cleaning companies.
We just want, like I said, to come back as safely as possible and have events that the public can enjoy safely and, bring back an entire industry that's been almost shuttered by the coronavirus.
The coalition is also asking for 20% of county COVID-19 relief grants to go toward the live event industry. Rally organizers say that they believe there's still a way to host some of these large events with some protocols. They're just asking that state and county officials give them a seat at the table so that they can prove it. Here in downtown, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
This week, SDSU got word that its fall sports schedule will be canceled due to COVID-19. USD and UC San Diego have made similar moves. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong has more on what it means to lose those events.
Earlier this week, San Diego State University and the entire Mountain West Conference announced that all fall sports would be postponed into the spring. This includes football, soccer, volleyball, and cross country. It could be a big financial blow to the university.
It could be anywhere from a $12 million hit down to a couple $1 million hit.
At a virtual press conference on Monday, SDSU's athletic director John David Wicker said the university is hoping its big donors can help mitigate the losses for the athletic department.
We'll be working with, our community, our San Diego State University community, and the greater community on how they can help us, weather this storm and still be in great shape moving out of it.
But for the city of San Diego, the economic impact of canceling college sports in the fall will be minimal.
Usually when you look at things like sporting events, any sort of economic impact would involve money being brought in by the visiting teams.
Alan Jin is an associate professor of economics at the University of San Diego. He said visiting teams in the Mountain West Conference don't usually bring crowds of fans to San Diego.
To me, it's not a conference where a lot of fans travel with their teams. And so I think there would be limited impact in terms of any outside visitors. Again, there could be some minor impact about the teams themselves, the outside teams themselves staying and spending money in San Diego.
Meanwhile, economics is the last thing on the minds of student athletes who are devastated by the decision.
I've dedicated my entire life to soccer.
Chloe Frisch is in her 4th year at SDSU. She said she'd consider extending her college career to have a proper final season.
So the fact that it would be over and I never got a chance to play my last game, I mean, if I had that opportunity to come back for a 5th year, then I would do that probably. And I think a lot of my senior teammates would feel that same way.
Joe Hong, KPBS News.
And some annual events are trying to make the best of it online, and that includes the Oceanside International Film Festival. The festival's 10th anniversary kicks off tomorrow. A few weeks ago, organizers realized in-person screenings wouldn't be possible, so films will be available to view online through August 23rd. Awards will be announced Sunday night. Schedules and more details can be found at osidefilm.org. And you can also find a Tiki Oasis online this weekend. Here's more from KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando.
Tiki Oasis is about fashion, cocktails, kitschy fun, and most of all, escapism. But this year, the annual Tiki Oasis Weekender is going virtual to offer escape from the quarantine of COVID-19, says Baby Doe von Stroheim.
really hoping that this will unlock the opportunity for people to just kind of forget their everyday life and just get to experience some different parts of what makes Tiki Oasis unique. So we're just going to kind of immerse ourselves enough into people's everyday life that maybe they'll get a little bit of that escapism.
But whether it's in person or online, Otto von Stroheim says Tiki Oasis never changes.
It's a meeting place for people who are into mid-century Polynesian pop. So if you appreciate architecture and you appreciate rum and cocktails, tropical cocktails and mixology, Hawaiian shirts and aloha wear, Tiki Oasis is the place to be. That's where you're going to find your tribe.
It's a tribe that puts a lot of work and creativity into dressing the part for a Tiki celebration. So being able to see what people are wearing and to be seen are key.
So we have a couple different ways that we're doing that. We have some meetups that are happening where people can see each other. And we're also doing we're doing a late night room party. That's a dance party kind of idea. And the concept with that is that people are all going to be on the Zoom. They'll get to see each other and see what other people are wearing, what they're drinking, how they maybe decorated their living room.
Another aspect of Tiki Oasis is the marketplace, and that's going online as well.
Our virtual marketplace has over 50 vendors.
Yeah, so in our vendor marketplace, you get to talk to these people. So just the way you would at, our actual real in-person show, you can walk up to them and talk to them via Zoom.
So tune in to the virtual Tiki Oasis TV this Friday through Sunday. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And that's all for this special edition of KPBS News. For all of us here at KPBS, I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thank you for joining us, and stay safe.